Around 2020 I had Medieval Demon, a black metal band from Greece, on my list for a possible feature in my Lost Bands of the 90s series. They had released a couple of demos and one album in the 90s before they disappeared. But when I started researching some details, I learned they had reunited and released a new album in 2018, so they were not lost anymore. Quite the opposite, they were better than before. So I followed their further development in the 2020s with more new records, and finally I want to introduce the band to you, even if it doesn't fit into the usual concept of my channel series, focusing on past bands. But they certainly are one of the best kept secrets of the black metal underground. Without going into boring lineup details too much, like who left when and who joined when, let's summarize it briefly and say that the band consisted of Lord Apollyon on drums and keyboards, his brother Syracuse on vocals, Mutilator on bass, who also played with Rotting Christ on some classic albums like Triarchy of the Lost Lovers, and this lineup was then completed with either Ketonios or Necro Christ on guitar. Let's look at the albums. Founded in 1993 after some demo tapes, Medieval Demon recorded the debut album Demonolatria between July and October 95. I found it difficult to pick a typical song to play as an example here, because with tunes like Spirits of the Dead or Fields of Tears, the band offers a remarkable selection with high intensity, also when slowing down like in Doomsday. Unfortunately, Unisound Records didn't put out the album until 98. By that time, members of the band had been drafted by the army and were forced to make a break. When they came back, black metal wasn't the same anymore. The scene had changed a lot towards the 2000s. Driven by the commercial success of the second wave of black metal, it was turning into something that Medieval Demon did not identify with, so they let things rest for more than a decade until 2013, when they finally reformed the band and wrote new songs.
I summon the air. I summon the water. I summon the fire. I summon the air. The time is right, so is decision. Opening the circle, mighty leader of the nights. Bearer of chaos and Erebus.
In 2018, Medieval Demon surprised us with their second album, Medieval Necromancy. It wasn't one of those reunions where a band tries to be half as good as on their legendary old stuff. In fact, they were on a whole different level now, musically as well as business-wise. They had been signed by the American label Hell's Headbangers, which brought them to the attention of a completely new audience outside Greece, and they'd stay on this label until today. The songs are better structured, musically better executed than in the old days, for example, Into the Caves of Blood or Black Moon Sacrifice. The piano-dominated Les Litanies de Satan indicates that the band knows their Celtic Frost and Therion records too. This helped to provide a lot of variety, and of course 20 years later the production was a lot clearer than on the debut. Songs like Meet Her Majesty the Black Queen and Mystics of Ritual Madness show that Medieval Demon continue to explore progressive elements on their third album. At the same time, their influences are no longer as easy to pinpoint as they were in earlier releases, suggesting that the band had become more confident in developing its own identity. Overall, I'd say Arcadian Witchcraft became my favorite release until then. I actually had to brighten the artwork considerably to make out the details, because both the artwork and the lyrics inside are printed in such a dark shade of red against the black background that they are almost impossible to see. It's certainly not the most user-friendly design choice, but Medieval Demon never seemed particularly concerned with commercial appeal if it comes at the expense of maintaining an air of mystery. Fortunately, the band would return to a more practical black and white presentation on their subsequent LPs. The band's third album after their reunion arrived in 2022. The 8-minute epic title track, complete with a saxophone solo, certainly makes an impression. However, Medieval Demon can hardly be described as a purely progressive black metal band, since blistering old-school assaults such as Sylvestris Deus clearly show that their roots remain firmly intact. A song like Katavithesis highlights the difference it makes when the keyboard player is the band's primary songwriter rather than simply a guest musician brought in to add a few atmospheric touches. For Medieval Demon, the keyboards are not an ornament, but a fundamental part of the songwriting itself. Now, would I call Medieval Demon a typical Greek black metal band? Not really. I think they are open to more directions. Originally inspired by the Swiss black metal scene with Samael and Hellhammer, Medieval Demon seem to have gradually moved closer to the occult metal tradition of Italy. Their sense of mystery, combined with imagery involving skulls, cloaks, and virgin sacrifices, brings to mind bands such as Death SS, Mortuary Drape, and Opera 9, all of whom excelled at creating the atmosphere of a dark ritual or black mass. The band's visual representation with the Undead Templars reminds me of the 1970s Spanish horror film Tombs of the Blind Dead too. An atmospheric piece like The Grave Dwellers suggests that cinematic influences have become more prominent here than on the earlier recordings. Most recent LP. They had limited editions of 250 copies black vinyl and only 100 of the bone white splattered version I've got. While maintaining their gothic horror theatrics and songs like Full Moon over the Temple of Belial, they sound altogether straighter than on older releases. All Powers of Darkness seems their most modern album to me. A strong output, but with less surprises, and I still prefer the two previous LPs for their originality. The next album, Meanwhile the Sixth, is already recorded and scheduled for release in 2026, so if Medieval Demon weren't coming your way before, look out for that. It's not a band you'll easily forget.